What if the answer to the Raiders' never-ending chaos was standing in front of them the entire time, wearing silver and black, bleeding for the shield, and waiting for someone to finally ask the right question? Because in Las Vegas right now, while Tom Brady is searching for a winner to fix one of the NFL's most unstable franchises, Derek Carr just did something no one saw coming. He didn't hint. He didn't leak. He didn't play coy. He stepped directly into the spotlight and said, "Give me the job." And whether Raiders fans want to admit it or not, this moment forces a conversation that cuts deeper than wins and losses. This video is about whether the Raiders are brave enough to confront their own identity crisis, because by the end of this story, you'll realize this isn't just about a head coach search. It's about whether the Raiders know who they are anymore. The Las Vegas Raiders are once again starting over. And for a franchise that built its brand on intimidation, rebellion, and dominance, constant resets have become a humiliating tradition. January of 2025 was supposed to be the turning point. Pete Carroll, the veteran culture builder, the Super Bowl champion, the stabilizing force, was brought in to replace Antonio Pierce. The message was clear. Experience would finally matter. Structure would finally matter. But 1 year later, after a brutal 3-14 season that left the Raiders buried at the bottom of the AFC West, Carroll was gone. Fired. Discarded. Another name added to a growing list of failed answers. And now the Raiders are staring at a terrifying truth. This will be the third straight season with a new head coach. That's not rebuilding. That's spiraling. This is where Tom Brady enters the picture. Not as the quarterback who haunted AFC defenses for 2 decades, but as the minority owner tasked with helping steer this franchise toward relevance. Brady's words sound calm, measured, hopeful. He says the fan base deserves a winner. He says the pieces of the puzzle must fit. But beneath those polished statements is immense pressure. Because Brady's presence alone raised expectations. The Raiders are no longer allowed to be a punchline. When Brady says he wants a winner, what he's really saying is that the margin for error is gone. And that's why Derek Carr's voice suddenly matters more than anyone expected. Derek Carr knows this franchise in a way no outside candidate ever could. Drafted 36th overall in 2014, Carr arrived in Oakland when the Raiders were still searching for an identity post-Al Davis. For 11 seasons, he carried this organization through relocations, rebuilds, coaching changes, and roster overhauls. He threw for over 41,000 yards. He delivered 257 touchdown passes. He endured broken bones, playoff heartbreak, and endless criticism. And yet, through it all, Carr never stopped defending the shield, never stopped believing, never stopped saying this was home. When he retired in May of 2025, many assumed his chapter with the Raiders was closed. Derek Carr had other plans. On his podcast, speaking not as a politician, but as a man emotionally tied to a franchise that shaped him, Carr made it personal. He didn't talk about schemes. He didn't pitch resumes. He spoke from the heart. He said he loved the silver and black. He said he knew who it should be. He asked for an interview. That wasn't desperation. That was conviction. And in the NFL, conviction is rare, especially from someone who has already given everything to one team. Carr isn't chasing power. He's chasing redemption, not just for himself, but for a franchise that has drifted further from its roots every year. Here's the uncomfortable question Raiders fans must confront. What if Derek Carr understands this organization better than any hotshot coordinator or recycled head coach ever could? Carr lived through the dysfunction. He saw how instability destroyed locker rooms. He watched young players lose confidence as systems changed yearly. He felt the weight of unrealistic expectations with no infrastructure behind them. And that experience could either disqualify him or make him uniquely qualified. Because leadership isn't learned in press conferences. It's forged in chaos. and few players endured more chaos in silver and black than Derek Carr. But this isn't a fairy tale. There are real concerns, real risks, and real reasons why this idea makes executives uncomfortable. Carr has never coached at the NFL level. He has never run a staff. He has never called plays from the sideline. And turning a former franchise quarterback into a head coach is a gamble that has failed more often than it has succeeded. For every Mike Vrabel success story, there are countless examples of former players overwhelmed by the transition. Tom Brady knows this better than anyone. He has watched teammates struggle to adapt to leadership roles post-retirement. He understands that greatness on the field doesn't guarantee authority in the building. Yet Brady also understands something else. Culture matters more than playbooks. Accountability matters more than buzzwords. And credibility matters more than resumes. Derek Carr would walk into that locker room with instant respect, not because of hype, but because of history. He suffered alongside this franchise. He represents continuity in a place that hasn't had any. And when Brady talks about delivering a winner, he's not just talking about Sundays. He's talking about restoring belief in a fan base that has been asked to be patient for far too long. There's also a symbolic layer to this that can't be ignored. The Raiders have spent years chasing outside validation. Big names, splash hires, trendy philosophies. But every time, it's felt hollow. Derek Carr represents an internal solution. A homegrown leader. A reminder of what this team once stood for. Toughness, loyalty, resilience. Carr isn't promising instant success. He's promising commitment. And for a franchise bleeding credibility, that might matter more than the next shiny offensive system. Still, the league is ruthless. Sentiment doesn't win games. Preparation does. And the AFC West is unforgiving. Patrick Mahomes isn't slowing down. Justin Herbert is still dangerous. Sean Payton is rebuilding Denver with patience. If the Raiders get this hire wrong again, they risk becoming irrelevant for another decade. That's the weight on Tom Brady's shoulders. He can't afford nostalgia. He can't afford experiments. He needs results. Which raises the ultimate tension. Is Derek Carr the safe choice because he knows the Raiders? Or the risky one because he doesn't know coaching? The answer may lie in how Brady defines a winner. A winner isn't just someone with a ring. It's someone who builds habits. Someone who establishes standards. Someone who understands pain and refuses to accept it as normal. Derek Carr knows pain in Las Vegas. He knows what losing does to a locker room. He knows what false hope feels like. And sometimes, the best leaders are forged not in championships, but in survival. Carr survived 11 seasons in one of the most unstable environments in football. That alone demands respect. This moment also forces Raiders ownership to look in the mirror. Are they willing to break the cycle? Are they willing to invest in development instead of shortcuts? Are they willing to give someone time instead of pulling the plug at the first sign of adversity? Because hiring Derek Carr would require patience. It would require trust. It would require alignment from top to bottom. And that's something this organization hasn't shown consistently in years. There's a reason Carr's words resonated. Fans heard authenticity. They heard someone who wasn't auditioning for headlines. They heard someone who genuinely cares. And in a league dominated by corporate messaging, that authenticity cuts through the noise. The Raiders don't need another press conference. They need a plan. And whether Carr is the answer or not, his challenge exposes the real problem. The Raiders have been searching for answers everywhere except within themselves. Tom Brady's search for a winner isn't just about resumes. It's about identity. It's about deciding what kind of franchise the Raiders want to be in this new era. Flashy and unstable, or grounded and intentional. Derek Carr just placed himself at the center of that decision. And now, the ball is in Brady's court. Ignore him, and you reinforce the idea that loyalty doesn't matter. Interview him, and you acknowledge that this franchise might finally be ready to listen to its own history. This isn't about whether Derek Carr will be the next head coach. This is about whether the Raiders are ready to stop running from their past and start learning from it. Because sometimes, the future isn't found by looking ahead. Sometimes, it's standing right behind you, asking for one more chance. So here's the question Raiders fans need to answer honestly. If Tom Brady truly wants a winner, should he bet on experience from the outside or belief from the inside? Was Derek Carr right to step forward, or should the Raiders keep searching elsewhere? Drop your answer in the comments. This debate isn't going away, and the next decision might define the Raiders for the next decade.